Many of you enjoyed the last video on how we source our watch movements, which is wonderful for us to see. I hope you enjoy our videos, and if you do, please do like, subscribe and comment below. We're thrilled that you're liking this content, but it's only with your support that we can do what we love. So let's hear your comments. I'd like to take this opportunity to look at a movement which many people take for granted, but which I would suggest is one of the most important mechanical movements to have been created over the last 50 years. I'm talking about the Valjoux 7750 chronograph, a movement that was born out of innovation, nearly lost for all time, but one that has underpinned the mechanical chronograph of the late 20th century, and in its most basic form has been essential to affordable timekeeping. Now, let's go for a little history lesson, and let me refer to Gerd R. Lang's wonderful book here, Chronograph Wristwatches to Stop Time. The word chronograph is derived from the Greek chrono, meaning time, and graph, meaning written. And chronograph was used first on a dial by Rius in 1822 on a clock. The first chronographs were pocket watches devised to measure time, but the only disadvantage being that the actual timekeeping was stopped as well. This is in contrast to the present-day sense of a chronograph, in which the timekeeping movement is separate from the time measuring complication. It wasn't until around 1844 that Adolf Nicol created the first zero setting mechanism. I want to make an important point here that I think is often lost in the smokescreen of luxury. The 19th century was pivotal in the Swiss watch industry. Numerous watchmaking companies were founded, creating the legendary names we all admire today throughout the world. But the individual watchmaker who sat at the workbench with his assistant producing watches individually was no longer the norm. This was a new era of industrialization. This was small and medium-sized factories producing watches by machine, industrial and commercial. Bear this in mind later. We are also talking in this video about wristwatches, not pocket watches. Reducing all the mechanical complexity of a chronograph in size brought its own set of challenges. Temperature compensation, the hairspring, magnetic sensitivity, amplitude compensation, clocked time accuracy, and so much more beyond the scope of this video. But it was in 1934 that G. Leon Breitling introduced the first two-button chronograph. Chronographs as we know them today, their functions, their layout and looks developed over the next 40 years. It's worth making the point, until the late 60s, chronograph watches were labour-intensive, needed careful servicing and prone to a higher level of failure than their simpler timekeeping only forebears. 1969 was a pivotal year in the development of the chronograph watch. Seiko introduced the caliber 6139, a consortium of Swiss makers developed the caliber 11, and Zenith introduced the high-frequency 3019, later known as the El Primero. Valjoux already had much experience in the world of chronographs with the manually wound 7733, developed for simplicity and reliability, and which remained in production until 1978. However, by 1969, Valjoux didn't want to fall behind their competitors, so they employed a young Rolex-trained watchmaker, Edmund Capt, who was just 24. Innovation was the name of the game, and advanced technology. This was the first movement designed with the use of computer, some say at Valjoux's Neuchâtel office, facilitating simulations and functional sequence drawings. The key element of the design were reliability and cost-effective production. Where the 7750 was so innovative was that its chronograph mechanism didn't rely on column wheels, but rather on levers to operate the functions of the chronograph using an oblong-shaped cam. Here you had a reliable chronograph that could be mass-produced in a more efficient and timely manner. However, the legendary 7750 was born in tumultuous times. In spite of working with new technology and moving into production rapidly, the Quartz Crisis was impacting the traditional Swiss watch industry hard, and after just 2 years, in 1975, production of the mechanical 7750 was halted. Management was of the firm conviction that mechanical watch production and ownership was at an end, and Quartz alone was the way forward. Not only was production halted, but instructions were given to destroy everything related to the 7750. Tooling, technical drawings, everything. The 7750 was a footnote in watchmaking history. Now, a little interjection here. We have had the privilege of working with many watch companies around the world and delving deep into their archives. Our very own Helicon Master was inspired by a long-lost prototype we found in Switzerland from 1962. When working with these companies, it is clear that in any manufacturing concern, they are looking at fulfilling orders and making a profit. The concept that someone would be interested in what they did 50 years later would have struck them as absurd. Edmund Capt, however, did have a vision for the future, and against his instructions, he saved every drawing of the 7750 tooling. Rumour has it in the loft of his house. The fact that Capt had saved all of the 7750 information was an absolute gift to the new conglomerate of ETA, who had absorbed Valjoux amongst many other Swiss names. An unexpected resurgence in demand for mechanical watches appeared in the 1980s, and the 7750 was perfect for this new demand. It's important here for me to comment on the inherent flexibility of the 7750. The 7750 was designed to be a mechanical, automatic, self-winding chronograph with a day-date complication and running second-hand. Powerful, robust, and flexible. It was the perfect canvas for complications, and many watchmakers would choose the 7750 as a start. As a fine example, look at the Fortis B42 Cosmonaut. Working with master watchmaker Paul Gerber, a fully functioning mechanical alarm complication was added together with a second spring barrel, adding a further complication of a second time zone later. Alfred Rochard developed the 7750 to be retro-converted into a traditional column wheel chronograph. Affordable and elegant. Indeed, such was the inherent good design of this movement that ETA introduced the Valjoux line, essentially creating a robust three-hand movement to which can be added a further complication, such as a power reserve. Nearly 50 years after its inception, the 7750 and its derivatives, such as the Sellita SW500 series, continue to have, in my opinion, an unrivaled influence on the mechanical watch industry. While many see it as a mere workhorse industrial movement, my view is that it is the mechanical watch movement that we should all own. Tell me your 7750 stories. I'd love to know the watches you have owned that have been based upon a 7750. Thanks for watching.